Morning, everyone. Before we get started talking about story, we've got Reed Lucas here from Channel Factory, who's sponsoring this session. Let him kick it off.
Hello, everyone. I talked to a lot of you guys yesterday. My name is Reed Lucas. I'm the Director of Channel Management at Channel Factory. We prepared a couple slides for you, but I think based on the group, I've got to know quite a few of you. So I thought I'd just give you an overview of what we do at Channel Factory and why we're here. First of all, we have three main products that we really feature with Channel Factory. One is the Channel IQ product, where it's a full-service channel management solution that starts with upgrade and optimization and adheres to all the YouTube best practices to effectively manage and grow your channels over time. So everything that you learned yesterday from Mark Robertson is all applied to that process on a monthly basis. And in fact, we work with channels for major brands on a daily basis. The second product we have is the ViewIQ product. The ViewIQ product, basically what it is it's an off-YouTube distribution platform that features 7,500 premium publishers where we embed YouTube videos and ad units that have very engaging overlays that encourage people to like, subscribe, comment, share on Facebook, and also perform calls to action. And then upcoming, we have a brand new product called Placement IQ, which is going to be a more effective way to make it easier to purchase TrueView advertising. I mean, we heard a lot of people talk about TrueView. If you were here yesterday for Greg's speech on TrueView, it's just amazing how powerful that platform is. So I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out here. And if you guys have any questions about channel management in general or any strategy for your channels, I'm certainly here to help answer any questions. And with that, I'll hand it back to CJ. Thank you.
Thanks, Reed. Thank you, Channel Factory. All right, so creative storytelling for brands is what we're going to be talking about. We have some awesome people up here telling a lot of excellent stories with video. My name is CJ Bruce. I'm the founder and managing director of Nuantics. We're focused on interactive video solutions that allow marketers to sell products directly from videos, capture emails directly from videos, and really any marketing goal that you have online. Our goal is to allow you to do that within a video without sending someone to a third-party site. And now we're going to go down the line. Everyone can introduce themselves, tell a little bit about what they do. And I think it'd be interesting for everyone if you could talk just a little bit about like your day-to-day, so not just your titles, but also what kind of things you're executing, because it's a little bit different for everyone. Can you kick it off?
Okay. All right, so my name's Clayton Talmon, and I work at Salesforce. I'm a video producer director there. And unlike the marketing team, I'm more internal communication, and we build story series on case studies, testimonials, all sorts of things that get repackaged and work as strategic tools for the sales team. We go on, but that's the rough of it. We'll get into it later.
All right, is this guy on? Can you guys hear me in the back? Yeah. All right. My name is Pete Cabin, and I'm one of the founders of Mechanism, which is a local creative agency and production company here in the city. And psyched to be here. Thanks for having us. And we're also based in New York. And my day-to-day revolves around the management of the company and along the lines of we have a film studio we're setting up about a block away from our primary office that's dedicated just to creating video content that I've been working on a lot this summer, and it's been awesome. So it's like to be here and talking to you guys.
Is this working? Yes. My name is Zach Bloom. I'm a partner at Portal A. We are a creative studio based in San Francisco and Los Angeles that produces content for the web. And we work with brand clients and we do our own original work as well. My title, which one of the nice things about creating a company is you get to just make up your title, is managing director. I could have made up something better, but my job, it sounds similar to Pete's actually, which is managing the day-to-day operations of the company, working directly with all our clients, and bringing in a lot of new business. My day-to-day is pretty fun, I guess. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm the founder and CEO of Adjust Your Set. I think, as Susie was saying in the keynote this morning, you need to have a different approach and different thinking to really get video. We are a full-service video agency, so we help clients with their strategy. We also do the creative, the production. We have our own brand technology platform that allows video to be played across owned, paid, and earned media and linked directly with the commerce. So we were the first agency to launch video commerce where you can buy directly from the video. And we also do the distribution, the data, and the analytics. We work with 15 of the largest brands in the UK and London, and we're setting up in New York at the beginning of next year. And I think the name of the company pretty much explains it. Adjust your set. It is time to adjust your set. I think we need a new approach. You need a different agency that understands making content, not just broadcasting ads and shouting about products. It needs different thinking, more intelligent storytelling, but also understanding the context as well as the content.
Great. Thanks, guys. So I'm going to dive right into storytelling. So I think that everybody can come up with a lot of great ideas. And so our first question is for the panelists. When coming up with ideas about what content to produce, how do you guys decide which ones to run with and which ones to leave behind? And then along with that, is there a science behind or data behind your decision making in terms of the ideas and the types of content? I think we'll just kick it off with Clayton and then work our way down.
Okay, so in our case, oftentimes our stories are driven by the objective. So again, ours is very strategically created content for a specific target client that we're going after or trying to close a particular deal. So the story is often already started before we get to it as to how the sort of the art of the deal was put together. It's our job to get in there and tear that apart and try to figure out what were the key components that made that happen. And then we take that story or that existing set of events and start to spin it into the possibilities moving forward and trying to project how that client will benefit by signing up with Salesforce or grabbing one of Salesforce's products. So that's really how we start the process of the story. And then after that, we look for what resonates, right? That's what we're all trying to do. We're trying to touch the heart. Even though we're all logic-based up on there, we're trying to find that emotional connection, which we try to get to as soon as we can. And once we get there, then we feel like we're on track. We're starting to get there. That's kind of the initial process of getting started.
Okay. Pete?
What was the question again? I think I know what it was.
When you're coming up with ideas, how do you
Yeah, how do you
decide
get
which
these?
ones to go with and which ones to leave behind?
Oh, right. Yeah, okay, thanks.
And then what's the science behind it?
Yeah, so the way that there's a lot of commonality there, but Mechanism is we're a pretty consumer-focused company, so consumer brands, so Pepsi and big consumer brands you may have heard of are some of our clients, and they can get creative ideas from anywhere, and so it's really, really competitive to try to go ahead and pitch concept and pitch and sell in and keep alive an idea for us. So our process. If there is one that's consistent, which it's not always the same, but just sort of as a broad rule, my partner Tommy Means, who's one of the creative directors, he usually says, and I think this is pretty accurate, we need to see 30 ideas to get to 3 that are worth pitching. And so it's not, and that just creates a lot of freedom to think just from a lot of different angles. But we do always work off of a brief, creative brief, that we write that connects into some key objectives that have some insights about a human truth that might exist inside of a brand. And then from there, we start ideating. And then we just have sessions where we're just killing ideas until everyone's like, these are the 3 or 4 that we should present and see which ones really resonate. But there's no analytics it's very intuitive. At Mechanism, it's not driven by data.
Okay, interesting. All right. Zach?
So yeah, I mean, some things sound similar again from what Pete just said, but we have the luxury of having been creating content for the web and for YouTube since like 2006, basically, and so we've made, I think, thousands and thousands of videos at this point, and that's a pretty good data set to look at, and we've learned. We've had a lot of really successful videos. We've had some horrible failures that hopefully nobody will ever see in this room, and so we've learned, and that I think informs a lot of our creative process. In terms of how it actually works, we too start with a download from our clients with as much information as we possibly can get. to understand, those key insights about who they are and what they're trying to communicate. And then we actually tap our entire team in the creative process, which I think is a little different. Even people who are working on the business side or the account side will get involved in the creative process. And we too come up with our creative director, Kai Hassan, gives a brief out to the team. Everybody goes into has about 5 to 7 days to kind of ideate and come up with ideas. We come back as a group and basically pitch each other internally on ideas, a lot of ideas, 30 plus ideas like Pete was saying, and the best ideas rise to the top. And that's what we eventually bring to the client. But I think we have a great internal process for coming up with the great ideas.
Cool. And then Chris, I know when we talked, you mentioned because you guys are focused a lot on the conversion, that also plays a part in the ideation phase. Maybe you could touch on that too.
Yeah. I think it's really important that when you're thinking about what ideas you're going to come up with, you're making sure that you're working with the client on what is the measurement of success, what's the ROI that they want to achieve. If it's with a retailer, it's obviously how can you be driving sales. If you're working with a financial institution, it's can you be leading more people to be taking up mortgages or taking up financial products. And then thinking about where that content's going to go, because the context is as important as the content. There's no point in making a piece of content that you then want to distribute into a publisher and it's got no relevance to what else is going on within that publication. So I think when we're coming up with ideas at the moment, what we're really trying to look into is how can we be as relevant as possible, because the more relevant you are to what's going on, the more powerful that piece of content's going to be. And as we move more into a real-time marketing world, you need to be able to think very, very quickly, create stories that are relevant both on your owned paid and of course in social, what people are talking about. So coming up with ideas quickly, having a bank of ideas that can be about the product, but not talking too much about the product, thinking much more editorially. What's the audience that you're talking to? What's their problems? What's keeping them awake at night? And how do you want to solve them? And then creating stories around that. And we try and help our clients, and when we're coming up with the ideas, to think much more like a publisher than an advertiser. So creating content that is kind of engaging, interesting, or informative, not banging on about selling a product, because people will switch off and leave. This isn't about advertising, it's creating content that has a purpose. And magazines have been doing it for ages. Advertisers and brands now need to think much more like it, have an editorial approach, and think about a publisher. Think like a publisher and try and get a conversation going.
Cool, thanks. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Definitely. So another question that we hear a lot is, when you're coming up with these ideas, are you using any kind of focus group, whether that's a real live focus group or a digital focus group, or any kind of testing out there in the marketplace? Pete, you want to start this one?
Definitely not. From time to time, we do end up testing concepts, but it's not because of we don't advocate that when we're doing comedy and content. You just don't want to see it get watered down, and the humor get watered down. And when doing branded content with comedy in particular, you really don't want the jokes to get sort of watered out by the brand or by the legal people at the companies. And so there's an edginess. You want it to be good. You want it to be actually worth watching. I think the Jeff Gordon example that Susie showed was pretty cool. I'm sure they had a lot of concerns about that, but if they so I think focus group testing is useful if you do need feedback, if you're trying to crack into an insight that's going to fuel trying to find a spark with a community that you don't understand yet. I think it's incredibly valuable. We do a lot of video research for brand new. It's more for insights, less about the actual creative typically, though.
Okay.
But I'm not saying, I guess I got shut off. I'm not saying that's necessarily right. That's just how we do it. So,
Zach, what about you guys? Do you guys use focus groups at all?
We don't use formal focus groups. What we do is we have a kind of a small community of writers and comedians and people who aren't working necessarily in the branded content world, but are on comedy shows on TV or writing for movies or whatever. And they're friends of ours, and we've kind of built that group of friends over the years, and we will happily share scripts or concepts or storyboards with them and just get their feedback on a totally informal level. And that to us is really valuable because we trust their opinions.
Chris, you guys?
Yeah, I mean, we have there's kind of the office measurability, and said, would you look good if you shared this with somebody? People want to share content if it makes them look good. That's the only way they're going to share it. And if one of the kind of measurements of success is how many views can we get on this? We have 100 people in the office. We can ask them. We have creative sessions where people are testing them. But what we believe in is the evolution and the optimization of video content. The brilliant thing about digital is you can move very quickly, you can take things on, you can take things off. It's not like broadcast, you've made it, it's gone out there. So the constant refinement of your content, we've all got our analytics platforms. Is the engagement right? Are people sharing it? Are people clicking on the right buttons to drive sales or to drive pickups, whatever you want to do? So we can constantly tweak the content. So we like to call it intelligent content, that it keeps getting better and it keeps being refined until it is hitting your optimum goal, which is whether it's a 17% conversion or it's selling 500 pairs of knickers. Depends what it is, but we can keep evolving it.
What are knickers?
Not pants, underwear. And then back to my point of kind of thinking of a publisher and not about just ongoing campaigns, but trying to kind of drive an ongoing conversation. Once you've got these formats developed that you've tested, you can then release them, so you know what your likely return on investment is for that particular piece of content. So then you can actually start rolling out the formats. You know that if you do this particular video to drive car sales, it should be this long. It should have this people in it. It should show the car from these different angles, and that people are staying on for 100% of the engagement. Then you can roll those out.
One just to add back in one more element that we do on the social media side of things internally is our social media team is actually baked into our creative team, but they're really, really focused on if something is going to be a hit and if they really feel like they can get it spreading. And they ultimately are sort of the last sort of check of like, is this thing any good? So there is a sanity check on, it's not a focus group, it's more of a, do we feel like we have a hit on our hands that has really built-in earned media potential in it? Is sort of the way that we do sort of dimensionalize the process. So it's not just a one-way, speed train of somebody's idea.
So one other person sees it before.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And 9 times out of 10, they're on the hook to go ahead and make sure that it does actually spread, and they'll raise their hand and say, this is not going to work if an idea isn't really fully thought through, or if it's just needs to get another pass at it.
Baked a little more, yeah.
And Clayton, for you, I know it's you're doing a lot of the videos for sales purposes and as well as the kind of training or onboarding of new Salesforce employees.
Right.
So on the employee side, you talk about that a little bit in terms of testing. Like, are you testing that internally with certain groups of employees before it goes out to everyone, or does that apply?
Yeah, we have a bit of that. We have a network Chatter, and we can throw a video up onto Chatter and instantly get feedback from 10,000 employees pretty quickly, and we'll be told if it's crap or not real fast. And which like Chris was saying, then we're able to get in there very quickly and start adjusting things and tweak it until finally we've got the right combination. So yeah, but it starts with a small team, and then when we feel good about it, then we throw it up onto Chatter to kind of see what connects. And then from there, we build the rest of the series off of that.
Cool. All right, Zach, we'll start with you on this one. I think this is something that I've come across too in talking with people about video marketing is people complain about, oh yeah, it's easy if you're Nike or if you're Pepsi to do these videos because you have an interesting product that has this brand built in. But if the product is inherently boring or doesn't have a story baked in, do you have any tactics for kind of how to find that story within that product?
Well, the first one that comes to mind was a client. So I mean, it was a client that it was a coupon company. It was a mobile coupon company, so it was a little cooler than just coupons. And that was, a really hard challenge for us because it was not. We weren't selling Nike shoes. We weren't, selling awesome hotel rooms. We were selling a mobile coupon technology, and. So we really tried to own it, and we created a really kind of over-the-top, like clearly over-the-top, explicitly over-the-top musical that took place in a supermarket. And so in that way, we kind of, instead of, actually that video kind of led a rebranding of the whole company, and kind of gave them a little bit of a new identity, which was much more youthful and fun and energetic. And so I guess our approach in that specific instance was, instead of kind of like letting the tone of the product define the marketing, to really like create content that could kind of redefine the product. And we kind of went to the extreme, actually, as opposed to staying in the kind of in the ballpark.
Can you say what the product was?
It's a company called Mobeam, and they create mobile coupons that you can use on your phone.
Cool.
Yeah.
Chris, you want to add that?
I mean, my advice is marketers need to be brave. They need to think differently, and they shouldn't be talking about their products. You know, that's kind of old-fashioned. They should be thinking about how can they solve problems, how can they help their customers. And you know, if you've got a boring, unachingly cool brand that, I don't know, you're a bank or something, then make advice. You know, how can I create a wonderful home? How can I make content about, you know, how do you make your kid's life better? Or there's so many interesting stories that you can tell which are not related to the product. The minute you start banging on about the product, people will switch off and leave. So you need to really think back. I'm kind of repeating myself, but thinking much more editorially. What do your audience want? How are you going to help them? What's keeping them up at night? And how are you going to solve their problems? And then you get much more trust from your customers and your consumers, because you're actually giving them something and you're not directly trying to sell them something. And there's so many things. Decide what your kind of brand narrative is. What do you want to think about? If you're an airline, you know, give people advice on the best restaurants, the best nightclubs, the best beaches to go to. Don't go on about, here's a nice seat and we've got the best in-flight entertainment. Think differently, think like a publisher, and create compelling content. And I believe that you will win if you do that as a marketer. But you've got to be brave and you need to think differently.
And Clayton, for you guys, when, you know, especially, I guess, onboarding the new employees, making that exciting or telling interesting stories in that, can you discuss that at all?
Part of our job is to try to get them to absorb the culture as fast as possible. In our game, it's all about productivity and trying to get these new guys to get up to speed as quickly as possible and to grab the overall concept of Salesforce and how it works and how it's different thinking. And we trying to think actually how we pull that off. We pull that off a few different ways. I mean, obviously, it's basically you grab the old guard that's there and have them introduce themselves and try to help these new guys grasp the overall concept. But actually, I have to kind of think about how we actually package that, because now that I'm thinking about it, we're producing so much content. A lot of them, they're obliged to watch. They have to absorb 40 hours of content before they ever even enter into boot camp. So it's like a MBA after your MBA, and in you go for 8 days of serious Salesforce boot camp, and there's a lot of content to absorb. Most of it case studies, testimonials, things like that, but also expert sort of introductions and insights.
And Pete, you guys just launched a campaign this week with GE, the Datalandia.
Are you calling them boring?
That's no. But the subject matter.
Yeah, no, so yeah, that is an interesting, that came to mind. And I'm not sure how you framed the question exactly, but I think when we have a topic that is just inherently could be dry, we just turn around and run it the other way, is the way we type to think about it. And for General Electric, which is one of our clients out of our New York office, they have a big agenda that is really interesting, actually, and they call it the industrial internet. And how does big data apply to machinery is really what the business they're in for trains and automotive and hospitals. And you know, it's not Nike shoes. It is something that's much more business to business. So we launched something that we just have a new episode out that we rolled out yesterday. And what we pitched them was on a fictitious town called Datalandia that was sort of playing off the Portlandia sort of vibe, where a small town that was saved by big data. And there are a series of really fun, crazy web films that we shot in Germany, where it was we found the largest miniature train set in the world, and it is absolutely massive, bigger than this building. And shot on location there, these miniature stories of vampires taking over this town and how big data actually saved, saved the world. And so it's just a very story-driven, fun way to take the whole thing. They could have put out, and they probably do put out white papers that are 500 pages long as part of their marketing communications. But that's an example of something recent. Another fun one we did last summer was for Charles Schwab, and they're heavily regulated about what they can and can't say because they're in finance. But we got Chuck himself to be in a campaign called "Oh Chuck, I Blew My Cash," and it was a social media program where he would give advice on. We interviewed and filmed people who had bought like 500 pairs of sneakers, and he's like, "Well, I'm not so sure if that was the best use of your cash." And just created a fun dialogue that was engaging. So there are a lot of ways. No matter how boring your topic is, I think if you do get creative with it, as Chris was saying, just think differently, and just sort of don't think about the way you would have done it in the past. Think about fun new ways to do it. And YouTube is obviously a huge piece of this. That's how we usually approach these things. And we don't think in terms of B2B or B2C, because the CIO or the CTO who may be buying a B2B solution is actually a person. It's like who likes watching YouTube videos as well as anybody. He just happens to be really good at technology, buying. So we have a tendency to not worry about the titles or the categories and think more on a human level of like, who is that guy that's sitting there that we're trying to reach, and how do you get him excited?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. I think there's a lot of opportunity as well to tell those stories. I think that that audience, the CIO, the CTO, aren't really being spoken to directly with a lot of the campaigns that are out there. It's much more B2C. Like you said, there's a lot of ways that you can tell those stories, and I think getting in there and seeking out those opportunities and thinking differently is a good way to do it.
The basic idea is everyone likes jackass comedy. This is what it comes down to. Yeah.
All right, start with Chris on this one. So in all the work that you've done, do you see any common elements in the most successful videos?
I think the kind of the most success we've had is when it's not just about, hey, let's make a video. It's let's go back a step. I think a lot of people shoot first and ask questions later. And I think you need to think, okay, video is a serious medium. It's probably the most powerful medium available to marketers. Let's have a strategic approach. You have a strategy for any other medium that not going to go and launch a press campaign or a TV commercial or a big poster campaign without a strategy. And very, very few brands have a proper video strategy, and you need to start with a strategic approach. You need to understand what content you're going to make, where it's going to go, what's the measurement of success, how is it going to drive the right ROI. You need to be thinking about the technology and the content, not just taking a piece of content and hiding it on YouTube, because that's not going to drive you any success. We often say in the office that YouTube is the best place to hide your video, but you need to think about, how are you going to make your video work? So my advice, and the most success we get, is when we start with a strategy, and then from that you develop a content plan, which is not just about a campaign, because we don't work in campaigns anymore, and it's not about creating interruptive advertising. It's about creating an ongoing schedule. So you're going to create content ongoing, and you're going to distribute the content daily or weekly, and then you're going to keep measuring that to build your audience and to drive your sales. And we've done it very successfully with Marks and Spencer's. We've been working with them for 5 years and have had a really good strategic approach to creating ongoing content, distributing that content across their own paid and earned, and driving sales, and not being too silly, but we get an average 20% conversion on any video on their site. People then go and actually buy a product. So having that kind of intelligent strategic approach, planning the content with the commerce and making sure those are both blend for all our clients has led to the best results.
Zach, what about you guys?
Well, I don't think there is a single answer for what kind of video works online. I mean, if you look at just the two videos in the previous presentation, a Jeff Gordon Pepsi commercial and a Dove Real Beauty sketches, it would be hard to find what unites those two videos, other than that they were both incredibly successful. But I do think, I know from our experience, we've developed a series of kind of questions that we ask ourselves as we're going through that creative process, and then as we're going through the strategic process, that we've developed kind of like a series of rules or questions that we ask to see if our ideas pass the test. And they're just questions like, does this speak, do you know which audience you're speaking to? We think the web is organized into smaller communities that are organized on blogs or message boards or subreddits or whatever it is. So we're thinking about, does this speak authentically to a niche audience? And we ask that question to ourselves. We ask ourselves, is this relatable on an emotional level? Is it going to kind of hit someone, whether it's humor, emotion, sadness, whatever emotion you're going for? We ask ourselves, would you share this with your friends? And then the immediate follow-up is, would you share this with your mom? Because I think you have to be, like you were saying, you have to be proud to share something with your community if you're going to share it. So we have a whole series of questions that we've developed over time that are kind of litmus tests for how good our ideas are. But I don't think there is a single answer to, is there something that works online? It's different every time.
Pete, for you guys?
I think it's not sadness.
Yeah, probably not sadness. Probably not sadness.
That's the one thing you can count on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really great question. I think we've been doing this for a while, and there are certain patterns that you can kind of tease out. But I think ultimately for us, the way we talk about ideas is we're really looking for a big idea. And it sounds very cliche, but does it have legs? Is this going to actually carry? Is it a platform that you can roll more and more stories over? Is one of the things that we talk about just from a structural standpoint. And I think that in the writing process, one of the areas that we really do look for, it's not for every campaign, but just we do look for this, is there a beginning, middle, and end to the story? No matter how long it is. It could be a 6-second vine, or it could be a 3.5-minute piece or a 30-minute piece. And are there characters? Is there a storyline? And I think a good story, whether it is trying to emotionally connect with somebody on, actually, more sentimental or sad side of things versus trying to get somebody to laugh out loud, a good story, well told, is ultimately at the core of anything that gets shared is sort of the truth. So having really good writing is really important. That carries you through the entire process, that then also inspires you to share it. And so shareability in the virality piece is a little bit hard to pinpoint, but ultimately that can come in the form of really good jokes, something that has authenticity in it, that really wants you to share it and get credit for sharing it in sort of social currency speak and get that dopamine hit, as everyone talks about these days, is something that we also we see through most of the work. Cool. And if it's boring and people don't want to watch it from beginning to end, then I think that's a good litmus test to look out for. It's common sense, but if it's not really, really exciting on any level, then you probably could go back and either re-edit it or find some different music or actually work through it through the production value process and entertainment value.
Cool. And Clayton, for you guys on the sales side, I think, so you're making these videos for specific pitches. Have you learned from the pitches that you've done? Is there a format that you work off of, or how does that work?
Well, again, it's about story, and as soon as we can get to that point where we're finding that emotional connection, then we know we're getting there. But we're always measuring our successes if the deal got closed or not. We're really attached to the sales team, so if we're successful in getting that message across and hitting a nerve with the C-level group, then we've done our job. And oftentimes we're not quite sure what that piece is, but we always go straight to story and stay on it, and again, test within our team to make sure that we're feeling what we think we're wanting to feel and getting that message across. And then we wait for the result and see if that message got across at the right time. So.
And then if it does, then do you take any of those learnings onto other pitches, or is it just?
Yeah, it starts to develop a pattern. We kind of know the pieces that need to be there to get the point across, and to.
Can you talk about some of those?
Yeah, some I can. We just finished a piece a piece with Gap that needed help. We got actually called from them. They needed help internally to spread the message of a new product that Salesforce had brought to them, and they needed help getting uptake within the organization. And so we needed to come up with some sort of fun campaign to say, hey, come on over and join this new group. So they put a game aspect to it on their side. We produced the video, and the first teams to reach a certain level got, I don't know, they had some gift for them. So they gamified on their side. We set up the video and the story for them to play along with, and it took off that way. So that might be how we might jump on that.
I'll take it. All right. One last question, and then we'll open it up for questions from the audience. If you guys could give just one storytelling tip that the audience could take away and go home and start to implement right away, what would it be? Chris, we'll start with you.
I think I'm just repeating myself again. Find out as much detail you can about your audience and where that story is going to go, and create a story that is going to resonate with them, is going to help them, is going to inspire them, is going to excite them, is going to solve some problems of them, and then make that story that you create relevant, and then put it in the right place.
Yeah, I was going to say know your audience as well. I think that's one of the most important things. Another important thing that we've been able to do is to create content where we're not working with a brand, and so we get the chance to experiment and, like I said, to succeed and to fail. And so I think one of the most important things in our company's growth has been the opportunity to create content without repercussions, and to test and to try different things and to learn from it.
Pete?
Yeah, the thing that comes to mind is, and there are a lot of potential things to look at, but for me personally, when we have a new opportunity, what I internally do is I think about one of about 5 directors that work with us that are the right natural fit, who I think can actually crack the code on either the tone or the writing. So ultimately, I think, and this isn't about mechanism, I think looking at who is the actual director and writer will determine if it is good or if it's great. And so there are dozens and dozens of amazing production companies in LA and New York and London, San Francisco. And if you look at their reels of the directors, this is what agencies typically do, is they just look at a lot of different reels. And you can start to kind of get a sense of what it is that you might have in mind. And then you can ask them for directorial treatments to say, hey, how would you treat this filmmaking project? And it could be a YouTuber that's not from a big production company, who also has a huge following that may just sort of naturally resonate with what you're trying to get out there. And I think that's another area to look at and explore, just emerging talent.
Cool. And Clayton?
Don't be boring. It's just and I'm in corporate world where boring is kind of the norm. And our job is to get in there and really flip things upside down. And there's a lot of, we're dealing with pretty stiff business people a lot of times, and we'll pitch some ideas sometimes, and they're like, are you out of your mind? And we're like, yep, that's the whole point. We're trying to really push it as much as we can in the corporate world. So our drum beat is don't be boring. So
It's a good drum beat.
yeah.
I like that one.
Yeah.
All right, now we're going to open it up for questions. If anybody has any questions for the panelists? Anybody at all?
Don't be shy. Don't be boring.
Don't be boring. Don't be shy. Yeah. I don't know if we have a mic. You can just yell it out. I can do this.
So what you said, don't be boring, flip things upside down. So if you have an idea, it's a great, bizarre, fun idea, but you hit that brick wall, and you're constantly hitting that brick wall because they're a conservative company. So how do you get around that?
Well, okay, so Storyforce, that's our team. Salesforce, the guys I work for. They're actually a pretty cool company. I mean, everybody's pretty young. It's a pretty smart company. I say there's a brick wall only because our team is saying, I can't pitch that to our client. I can't show that to our client. So it's the client that we're dealing with that we have to be careful with. Our internal teams are like, yeah, let's just go for it here. So it's that balance of, we need to maintain professionalism, but at the same time, we need to get our point across. So oftentimes the way we solve that is we pull back from our original crazy idea and we try to find a happy medium where we can still keep the thing entertaining while getting our point across. At the end of the day, we need to close that deal and or support the sales team. So we can't blue sky the thing so it's so crazy and out there that we've lost it. So it's a balance. We're working back and forth. I'm pushing, they're pulling back. They're kind of reading the client saying, yeah, these guys are cool enough, we can go with it. Another client might be a little more stiff and we've got to kind of save it. And ultimately what we do is we do 2 cuts. We do our cut and we do one for them. And oftentimes they take our cut, so.
What about you guys in working with more conservative brands, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about getting on the same level at the very beginning of the project. And when we're working with our clients, they obviously have watched our work and they know what type of content we create, which is, pretty edgy, fun stuff. And so I think it's really about setting expectations at the beginning of the project, getting on the same level, and creating kind of like a shared understanding of the type of content you want to create. So that down the road, when you're halfway through the production process or when you're editing, you don't run into that problem.
Thanks. This is probably a question for the 3 of you over there, not the inside Salesforce person. I apologize, but you have the luxury of not having to go to an agency. But when you work with agencies and brands, do you have a preference, or that's probably the wrong way to? How would you characterize your relationships in terms of creative development and moving things along between working with an agency or directly with a brand?
Can you just kind of reword the question? I'm not
Yeah,
quite
I think
sure
we're
what
all.
you mean.
Can you just phrase the question one more time?
When you compare working directly with an ad agency or working directly with the brand in producing your content, what are the differences, and where have you found your greater success in actually making something that breaks through and makes good work?
I see what you're saying, yeah.
It's
No, go ahead, Chris.
much easier working directly with the brand, obviously, because you're cutting out an unnecessary layer. And I think there's quite a lot of above-the-line agencies who still think very traditionally about, television, press, poster, interrupt, broadcast, advertising, and they don't really think about content and storytelling. And I think, as Susie said earlier, thinking differently about content you create. So I think there must be collaboration for clients at the moment. You need to collaborate, you need to work together. But life is a hell of a lot easier when you work directly with brands. And I mean, we have 18 clients and we work directly with all of them. So we support them strategically and help them think differently. But understanding and supporting if they have the big brand narrative, and supporting their kind of above the line campaign, which is more and more turning into a kind of invitation to a richer experience, which you're creating with video content. So you need to support them and understand it and collaborate. But it's easier working directly with brands. That was a long way around, but yeah.
Well, I think it's for us, it's the total opposite, actually. So, surprisingly, I mean, we work direct with brand 95% of the time too. We have a couple agency partnerships. When we're working with agencies, it's actually really easy for us because all we're doing is producing. We're just taking basically, a concept and just producing it. That's actually much easier than what we're normally doing, which is creative, production, and strategy. So that's like the hard work. It's the fun work, but it's the really hard work. Working with an agency, it's much more prescriptive and easier for us.
It's a topic that is dear to our hearts at Mechanism. We started as a production company that serviced agencies 10 years ago, and about 5 years into it, decided to actually compete with that and become an agency. And it was a very interesting transition from a business model standpoint and just a cultural standpoint. But the reason was very simple, is that we fundamentally believed that we could do better work if we had a direct strategic relationship with the brand and we could move faster and keep more of the budget to put into the project versus having two companies trying to get the same end result. And we're big on speed and trying to move it in real time, the speed of social media. And so what we've done is a little bit weird, is we actually are an agency, a production company, and a media company all squished together, because we feel like with multiple partners, you end up just with too many layers and too many meetings in order to go ahead and get to the goal of engaging with your audience on a daily basis. And so it's a really interesting question, and there's no wrong answer. There are a lot of ways to go, and there are some benefits to working with an agency and a production company. You get a variety of talent. You're not working with the same exact group of people over and over again. So I think ultimately it depends on what the client wants and how they like to work. And they don't necessarily distinguish, big brands don't necessarily distinguish between agencies and production companies. They think everybody is an agency as a handle. And it's like, great, we have a production agency, is what they say, 9 times out of 10, who's just coming up with great creative, and they have a brand agency over here. So I think the world's changing, which is great. And I think if you do great work creatively, great strategy work, and do great service, it doesn't matter what your model is.
Great. All right, guys, that's all the time we have. I want to give a round of applause to our panelists.